Charles.
All right. Here we go. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to come before you all today. This is our continuation of the Let's Talk About Race podcast. But today we're going to provide a little spin in terms of the direct correlation between, of course, dealing with race issues in reference to the hip hop community, and specifically the impact that hip hop has on the culture, and of course, specifically within Black folks, not even within this country, but of course, on the impact that it has around the world. So to have this conversation, I have two intelligent men who I hold in the highest esteem. Do you just want to jump in and just give a quick hello, quick let the folks know who you are, and I guess you could also talk about specifically what hip hop means to you.
I'm gonna let Sundiata go first this time.
Okay.
Now you can go first.
See, I knew you were gonna do this. We're gonna have this thing all the time. Fine. Age before beauty. I'll go.
And then before you go, like I know I said this, the last time, but we have an official B-boy and Lew Gitelman, and to his credit, he's actually provided the knowledge into his son, and his son is an official B-boy now as well. Puts on various shows all throughout the world, like literally. He's doing big things. So my fault, Lew. Go ahead, man.
It's okay. Give big props to the white man. We need it.
There he
On a
is.
serious note, my name's Lew. 70 years old. I've been listening to this stuff since it broke, and watched it grow and spiral in many different directions. And I think we'll talk tonight about what's the strengths and weaknesses of today's stuff. But basically, hip hop broke open the mold on everything. It just broke open the mold, and challenged culture, art, style, all kinds of ways that it spoke to people. That's what it did. That's why. And particularly in the beginning, it was the people's art. That's who it was. And we can get into later how it can get co-opted, but that doesn't take away that it's still the people's art. And it reflects their anger, their aspirations, their love, their happiness. It just did. It's just like, damn, that's me up there. Now, not me personally, but that's me up there. Right. That's me. That's my music without making any Vanilla Ice shit. It was, so that's the way I feel about it. And the only thing I want to say about it is because I think it is important to say, being a white person, I understand that it doesn't reflect me in the same way, but in the way that it reflects an anger and a wanting things to be different and being accepted as who you are, that can speak to all of us. That speaks to all of us. And nobody's got flow like hip hop. They just don't. There's no flow better than hip hop.
I think that was a double entendre, right? I mean, I like that. I like that, man. You like that. I like that.
And I like that you use double entendre because we know our audience can understand what we're talking about. We're not afraid to use big words.
My man.
Hip hop for me was it's a culture, that I was raised in. Well, I won't say raised in, because like my mother didn't teach it to me, you know what I mean? But the community and the times that I grew up in, that was the voice of that time that was growing. I came in at its inception. I was young and not as young as it, but I was break dancer and then went into other parts of hip hop, the culture of hip hop, and then eventually got around to emceeing. So for me, I fell in love with it because, like Lew said, it was the voice of the people. It was the voice of people who didn't really have a voice, you know what I mean, or who weren't getting their voices heard in the way that they wanted it to be heard. So when hip hop came around, it had that energy, had power, that God force within it. It spoke from our past. I think it was our ancestors speaking through us in certain forms, the rhythms, the thoughts from some of the earliest, well, some of our best poets are definitely, I would say, Akashic memory transmitting
Mm.
from our ancient ancestors, bringing it up to here. Now, what's been done with it, like Lew said, that's a whole nother conversation. But the love of it came from what it actually was to me, and that was a positive form of culture. And like I said in our last conversation, I see it as the Osiris of music,
Mm.
the Asar of music, where it brings forms of music that may not be that popular anymore, but it brings them back into people being able to hear them, hear the rhythms and appreciate them, and then hear mixed in with other stuff and the DJing and scratching, and you know what I mean? So it's just a wonderful thing.
Mm. So to piggyback that, so if Osiris is a hip hop, so what's the counterpoint? So what's the ISIS to hip hop, man? So what's the counterpart?
You know what I mean? It's interesting because I guess the hip would be Asar and the hop would be our set.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Because there's one together, yin and yang together. Hip hop
Right.
shows the worst of us. It shows what we deal with, our pain, our struggle. But it also shows our brilliance. It shows our resilience. It shows, our creativity. So it's that whole yin and yang thing. It's everything involved. You get the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Mm. Mm. And Lew, I'm going to give you some pushback in terms of you saying you as a white man and you feel like you may not represent hip hop. I think either your true embodiment of hip hop, if folks really know you the way I know you, and of course, Sundiata knows you in terms of who you are and the work you've done in terms of hoping to just revolutionize and change all the negative aspects of racism and, white supremacy and all the negative ills, which represents this historical sin that America continues to perpetuate. Your life has been to destroy these evils, man. So you represent the true embodiment of, I feel like, what birthed hip hop. You know what I mean? Just in terms of individuals, just wanting to have a voice and to really speak to what's going on in their communities and hoping to make a change, man. So you represent that embodiment of everything that you've done, brother. So that's a little pushback for you, my man.
What does hip hop mean to you, Charles?
Right. So, as we spoke about, during our last build, for me, the connection of hip hop, it really hits home, as I was telling you all, I could recall my earliest memories of hip hop, going back to when, just hanging out with my father, may he rest in power, just hanging out with him, with his friends, and, just being with him, with, Grandmaster Flash, just like blasting, and all these songs and just having a good time, and those songs, I'll never forget them, the message and just various other songs, just it represents my entry specifically into hip hop, so from there, of course, it pretty much saved my life in a lot of ways, just in terms of, and folks, a lot of people don't take this into account, just the intellect of these artists and all the various works of literature that they presented in their songs. It pretty much gave me my knowledge of self, so I'm hearing all these songs and I'm hearing, different references to various people and various references of work. And it's just like, man, I want to delve into that. And specifically from hip hop, that sort of like sprang forth my love for Malcolm X, who of course represents my idol, and in lieu of course of his passing February 21st, it's just, it just comes full circle for me, just in terms of hip hop providing that connection and reference point into just literary genius, that various artists just display on a, continuous basis. For me, I like to call it the golden age of hip hop. Of course, I know you older gentlemen like to, perhaps even, delve a little bit before the 90s, but for me, that 90s era represents the golden age in terms of providing that link, of course, between, the old school just sharpening of that pen. I think of Rakim, KRS-One and Rakim just sort of providing that conscious focus. You know, KRS-One, of course, providing the political aspect, but just in terms of like just sharpening, just putting words together and just creating powerful messages. You know, KRS-One and Rakim, you know, sort of, you know, comes to my mind at first. And then, you know, that moving into, you know, Tribe Called Quest and, of course, Fugees and Wu-Tang and Nas and, you know, Outkast and, you know, Ice Cube. I mean, we're talking about, oh my God, just for me, it represents my heart space, you know, in every aspect of the word, man. And it continues, you know, for better or for worse, to just be, you know, influential throughout all facets of our society. Oftentimes for the worse, and I guess we'll talk about that at some point. But with that said, I guess, you know, quickly for you all, you know, just thinking about, I guess, the influence that hip hop, you know, has across all facets. Do you think specifically in reference to the Black community, do you feel that there's a responsibility with artists in terms of the images that's portrayed within the music and, of course, the message that's portrayed in the music? Do you feel like artists have a responsibility to sort of project a positive influence within their music?
Go ahead, Lou.
Why is it always gotta be me? Why can't you go first? Now everybody knows I'm a jokester. They've passed laws now. You all can sit in the front of the bus now, so I don't always have to go first, but I will anyway. I think it's a very difficult thing. Yes, I think it should be positive images. What I don't like is that every Black artist is called upon to represent his community and talk about social justice and blah. I think if you want to, you should, and it's a really good thing. But white artists aren't asked the same thing. So if you're just, you know, again, we kind of hit it on this. If you're Biggie Smalls, that's just some flat out beautiful flow and lyrics. No, Biggie wasn't really speaking to all the, he ain't Immortal Technique. He's not Public Enemy. And some of it's not positive, but it's still really good. So I think that's one thing. I do think about the, you know, the real, you know, for lack of a better way to say it, kind of sexist stuff and misogynist stuff that happens. And actually, Charles, I sent you that video of those Black women comedians talking about some of that. It's a very contradictory thing. I don't know how to hold it all. So I'm going to say one last thing, and then I'm going to drop it off to someone. Sexuality in this country has been so, you know, is Anglo-European, you know, you shouldn't be sexual at all, right? Like you're supposed to wear, you're not, you know, don't show nothing. And then there's the flip side of being sexual and in your body, and you should be proud of it. So I don't know where the lines always are, but in my gut, I'm going to quote Justice Earl Warren. When they asked him about pornography, he said, I can't define it, but when I see it, I know it. There's some shit out there that when I see it, it's like, no, and no, like, no. But I don't know where the line is. I'll leave that to you all.
So we're kind of talking about, rephrase that, if you will.
Yes, sir. So in reference to, you know, we speak about the influence that hip hop has had directly on us. Pretty much it sort of represents who we are at this point as individuals. So I guess my question is in reference to the influence that hip hop has pretty much over society as we speak. Do you feel in reference to, in particular, the Black community, is there responsibility for artists to sort of project a positive image or positive music? Do you feel that artists should have that responsibility?
I think, you know, it's funny. I'm sort of twisted on that one too. I feel like art, it should be art. Art is supposed to be an expression of different things. You don't have to always make a point. It doesn't always have to be positive. Art can be expressed in many, many different forms. Now, with that being said, I feel like hip hop is so integral with our culture and our times and the way that we do things. It's almost a reflection. It is a reflection of real life, and sometimes it's almost the real deal itself. Therefore, I feel like we almost have a certain, almost like a civic responsibility within hip hop to. You don't have to make everything like X-Clan or Poor Righteous Teachers or a Public Enemy where you bang 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 hardcore with the science, but I think there is a certain amount of dignity that should be upheld. Like we are setting forth images to our communities, messages, and their vibrations, words on top of vibrations, which are super powerful magic tools. And so, if we allow ourselves to, portray the wrong things and go too far for such a damaged people mentally, what I mean? I think we have to think these things through. It's not. I look at white people and I say, they're damaged too through racism, but they're dealing with a different set of problems. What I mean? When I say a different set, it's like they don't look in the mirror and say, I hate myself because I look like this. Many of us do this. You know what I'm saying? Subconsciously, some of you out your mouth, you know what I mean? Oh, I can't stand my hair like this, or you hear sisters, I wish I looked like that, or whatever. So we got issues. I think we have to be a little bit, everything don't have to be positive, but I think everything should be progressive to an extent, for us to come out from where we are. I don't know. It's a tough question. What do you think?
Man, you said it there. And I think the one word that resonates with me is there should be a dignity with the way you carry yourself. I mean, wow, that sort of took me in a different direction from what I was thinking about, because even just thinking about, early 90s with the East Coast, West Coast, going through, what they went through. Even before, a little bit before that, in terms of NWA and, F the Police and like all the quote unquote negative things that folks felt like they were saying, when honestly they were just, speaking about what they were going through, as a backdrop in terms of Rodney King and various other issues with the LAPD and with law enforcement in general. But to that point, those brothers and pretty much, the hip hop artists of yesteryear always carried themselves with a sort of dignity, So even if the message wasn't necessarily positive per se, they carried themselves a certain way that you couldn't help but just feel empowered or just want to emulate it, Right. There was just something about the energy that was different. And I was, with some family members a few days ago, and one of my little nephew, I guess he likes, it's Little Uzi Vert or a little something. And this young kid has like a diamond that he sort of had it encrusted in his forehead. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I'm gonna send you guys a picture, but pretty much his diamond is worth millions of dollars, and he had it permanently placed on his forehead, and when asked about it, I guess he said, well, that's just me. I do what I want to do, and it's just like, and I guess we're going to talk about in terms of, where we believe hip hop is going. But I guess I do believe that, going back to, the phrase, well, great power comes great responsibility. I do think, artists have a responsibility in terms of teaching the babies, specifically if your overall goal is not only just to make money, but to, make a difference. And I know, various artists, they want to make their money, which is perfectly fine. But I do believe there are most, if not every artist will like to see a change with, within the communities that they came up from. So I think that artists, I think they do have a certain responsibility. It doesn't all have to be positive, to your point, Lew. And hip hop doesn't always have to just project a consciousness per se. They got to keep it real, like everything else. You got to tell the truth. And right. Sometimes the truth isn't positive, right? The truth is what it is, as they say. Yeah, keep it 100, right? But I do think in terms of keeping it 100, you should do it with a certain dignity that I think, unfortunately, a lot of artists now, I don't see that same dignity. And if we could talk to in terms of why that's the case, But I would say, yeah, I do believe there's a certain responsibility for artists in terms of, projecting their artistry to the world.
Yeah, so I just wanted to jump in on that because I'm again in full agreement with the context of what we just said. I do think we've addressed this the last time. This is what capitalism does to any culture, right? They corporatize it, and once
Yes.
they corporatize it, people start selling their music to make money, and you get further and further away. So these young cats coming up, they may not even have any consciousness. They're about, they're about mad money and making a sound that works. And there's not enough, at least at this moment in history. And I think it's a little bit with what went on in the last year or so, a poll that's out there about strong, positive, political, conscious community that's doing other things. So that's ridiculous.
Little Uzi Vert. Yeah, I couldn't think of his name. So that's the gentleman that had a $24 million diamond encrusted. Yeah.
Got in India. That's part of their culture. But there's no other poll. So corporate culture has really started to take things over in a way that I'm not taking the blame off of people doing what they do. They still have to take responsibility, but there's no poll out there, not a real strong poll, like, whatever it was, Malcolm, Martin Luther King, the Black Panther Party. There isn't that big poll out there. Even though there's been some movements, there's not that poll out there that people are drawn to it. So again, they still got to take responsibility, but this is, to me, the message about capitalism and corporatism. They will fuck it, and as long as it makes money, they don't care. And I'm going to leave with this, like, they made black athletes, because that's who it was for, get dressed up in the NBA because they look too ghetto, right? All the kids bought all the things they bought.
That was the Iverson backlash.
Exactly. Yep. But the capitalists didn't care because they made money off it. They just sold saggy pants. And I remember, like, when people would sag with the tight ass jeans, that were really tight to them. It's like, they will take whatever the culture has and they will find some way to make money. And the minute they start making money, things all get fucked up.
And to the point, I think that was a turning point. I'm sorry to cut your wisdom, Sundiata, in terms of where hip hop sort of made that turn. And, it's my personal belief, it was sort of a detour in the wrong direction, was the shiny suit era, just in terms of, that puff, that blinged out, shiny suit, money cash holes, I think that's where hip hop sort of began to just lose its soul, in a lot of respects. And again, I'm not about anyone just not wanting to make their money, but I do think, like, to your point, Lew, when you involve money, and with money being the root of evil in a lot of respects, if it's not properly, with the proper mindset used correctly, I think that sort of led to, unfortunately, just what we see, just in terms of hip hop, to me, just losing its, I guess, basic ideals and values and foundations in terms of why it was erected in the first place. The message is totally different now. In fact, I don't even hear the message in terms of, young people even talking about where they came from. Now it's just a matter of just talking about drugs and, just senseless things that really doesn't do any, like, massaging to one's mental at all, So to your point, Lew, I think that's where the crossroads, that's where that sort of detour in hip hop came, when, money was just thrown at these artists and they became, $1 million corporations. They just became a corporation in itself, as opposed to just, representing artistry in its truest form.
One of the things about the capitalist system, like you both have touched on, is that when you have oppressed people who are having problems monetarily, across the board, anything that you put in front of them that's going to make, it's going to help you on a capital end monetarily, it's going to be somewhat powerful. It's hard to stand on principle when somebody's offering you a big lump of money, and it's in a system where it says the more of this you have, the more important you are. The higher your status is, the farther you can go. So when someone says, well, I'll give you all this money, but I need you to discuss these things here. I need you to portray these things here. And, you got a lot of people like last week, Lew told you to go see Hollywood Shuffle. There's a part in Hollywood Shuffle where there's this sellout brother, and he's talking to Robert Townsend's character. And he was like, man, they got you playing Jimmy. He's like, man, the NAACP gonna come down on this, man. Yeah, man, I don't envy you, but you go ahead, man. Some dudes can do that, you know what I mean? But man, I couldn't play myself like that. But they trying to do with you. He's trying to get in the same movie. Now, the moment that Robert Townsend decides not to do it, this dude jumped in the spot, just like that. And Robert said, you ain't shit. But bottom line was that shiny trinket, spotlight of fame, little wad of money, and new Puma suit. You know what I'm saying? That's enough to move a whole lot of cats.
Right.
When $20, they'll kill you for $20 in certain situations. You know what I'm saying? I've seen people go to war behind $20 to $50, but people with bullets was used. So you're talking about psychosis mixed in with, feelings of powerlessness. You got this venue here that I finally can be somebody. I finally can stand and make and have an image that I built myself, and it's cool and acceptable. But then somebody comes along with a bag of money and says, okay, well, I'll tell you what, you keep that image, but I want you to put these things in there too, and I'll give you more money. And then and you got a lot of people that just do it.
So can I just say, because I love Dame Lillard. He's great.
Who?
But Damian Lillard, did you see that commercial where he's doing the Hulu thing? And I think it was actually funny because I think it was ironically poking.
He's an amazing artist, by the way. I don't know if you guys have heard this stuff. He's pretty good, man.
Oh, he's really good. But have you seen that Hulu commercial? So, and he's trying to do his rhyme, and they're saying, put this in, put that in, put this in. And he says, nah, nah, nah. And then they bring out 2 briefcases of money. And he says, all right, I'll figure out how to do this. I think it's funny. I don't think it's bad. But I think that what you're talking about is there is that truth. And the sad thing to me is in oppressed communities, people who have been oppressed and have no power and access, then they're going to do all kinds of stuff to try to do that, right?
Right.
And so we understand that and how people make bad choices. It doesn't mean I won't hold you individually responsible, but it is just so sick because I heard Lil Wayne was on and he was talking about why he supported Trump. And we don't have to get in if Trump or Biden are worse, okay? We know they're both fucked up. But
There we go.
He said, I got no problem. I got mine. Trump, when you vote for him, I'm voting for him. Now, I don't think Lil Wayne represents most people in the hip hop industry.
I would hope not. No disrespect. I don't disrespect any MCs. I respect them all, but he's definitely his own man.
Yes. And so I just was saying, like, he was kind of embodying both aspects of this thing. Like, I want to respect you, but could you don't say you got yours and you don't worry about anybody else anymore, because we want something better than that from you.
And I remember, I'm sorry, guys, Sundiata.
No, I was just going to add on to that. That's a sentiment that they would like to pass along. Go ahead. Go ahead.
When I was a principal, yes, y'all, I was a principal of a high school in Roxbury. When hip hop was getting really strong in the 90s, when Charles was in high school, I could have been his.
Oh my God, in the 80s? No, not in the 80s, brother.
No, in the 90s,
yes, in the 90s, yes, yep.
I could have been your principal. I would have set you straight. I'm telling you, you would have been.
Oh no, man, I was wild, man.
Yeah, well, I would have stepped to you. Trust me on that. And what
I'm sure you would have.
there were so many young cats writing, like dudes who had never written before in my school they had notebooks full of rhymes and poetry. Like I can see this one dude, Evan, like he's right next to me right now, like just like it inspired. And then we were able to take that and talk about, okay, so you can do this. It was creating an intellectual, not not bougie intellectual, but an intellectual curiosity, and writing out your thoughts and doing one thing more than just writing out your thoughts, but struggling with the flow and the rhyme and the meter of things. The same way we would talk about, regular poetry. They didn't just flow. They then wanted to make it into an art form. That was like, I was just so moved in that period of time. I can still see some of the dudes coming into my office going, Mr. G, I want to read you this and let's chop this up. So
that right there is a powerful statement on literacy. Hip hop itself could have been one of the greatest tools to build literacy in the community ever. But it was dumbed down, like we're talking about. I'm not saying it's over. It ain't over. It ain't never over, because energy just transfers. You know what I mean? So we just move the energy back to where it was. But that's a beautiful thought, that a teacher or principal would see the light go on because of this art form. All of a sudden, people who may not have been interested in reading or writing, all of a sudden are trying to write and read and become literal. You know what I'm saying? And eventually, some of us went on to write books and things. I started off with poetry. Now I'm an author. You know what I'm saying? Also an MC, but I still write not because of hip hop. I was doing it before hip hop. When hip hop came, it just made it like, hey, I can do that. I like that. Whereas classical music, a lot of this goes back to that economic thing. If you went to a school that didn't have a lot of musical, if your music department wasn't strong, or if you didn't have a lot of money to pay for private lessons and things like this. Like I wanted to learn to play the guitar, and there was a kid in the neighborhood, a European kid named Omar Aquati. This kid could play that guitar. Matter of fact, he tried out for Metallica, and he got beat out by the dude who's playing for him now.
Wow.
Yeah, he was nice.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
He died in 1988 in a car accident in Charles River. But I tried to learn how to play guitar from him because my mother couldn't afford lessons. You know what I'm saying? And I wanted to learn how to play like Eddie Hazel from Funkadelic and Prince. And so,
look at you, Sundiata. Charles,
yeah, that's what I wanted to do. Huh?
Charles, did you know Funkadelic?
I know of Funkadelic. Yep.
You said of Funkadelic?
I mean, I'm not as familiar as you guys with it, of course, but yes.
But you've heard some of the music.
Of course.
Of course. He's from Queens.
Sundiata's going to bring some the next time.
Have you ever been to a concert?
Ooh.
That is an experience.
Yeah, it is. I've been to Funkadelic.
I'm sure you have, Lou. You probably had a better one than me because you probably caught it in the 70s, huh?
I did.
See, that's when my father told me he was off the hook. I saw him in the 90s. No, I saw him in the 2000s, early 2000s. And it was one of the best concerts I ever saw. I experienced something and it was a strange feeling. That mothership thing, when they talk about the mothership connection, when they build you up, they lather it up. When they start, they might start with Maggot Brain, bring you into Chocolate City, move on to Cosmic Slop and all this type. By the time they hit Flashlight, Knee Deep and all that, One Nation Under a Groove, there's a lather. Like you'll see old, young, middle, everybody dancing. It was in it's a vibe. It's a really strong vibe. I've been to many concerts, and hip hop, this and that, Fishbones, different, rock. I've seen a lot of different vibrations, but that Funkadelic vibration is special. Something to it. I don't know what it is, Lou. Something about the music.
Charles, we're doing too much talk, and we want to hear from you.
No, you guys are taking it where it needs to be. You guys are just talking about the intersection between us as educators education with hip hop. But this is, you know, going back really quickly in terms of where hip hop, I guess, what it's becoming. I think that could be directly attributed, as you mentioned, to capitalism. And I think directly, you know, reference a quote from KRS-One, real mainstream artists, or in other words, what was this quote? You're not going to find real artists in the mainstream, in not so many words. This is direct from KRS-One. And, you know, just reflecting on that, like, wow, okay. And then when you look at most of the conscious rappers that are out there, they're not really mainstream. So, you know, we're talking about Immortal Technique. We're talking about Mos Def. We're talking about Talib Kweli. You know, we're talking about all these various artists that sort of are on the fringe, but they're not really put KRS-One now. They're not really put out there. And I guess that sort of ties into what you were saying, Sundiata. I think, unfortunately, you can't even become an artist unless you're given a template in terms of what you're allowed to say, unfortunately, right? And yeah, what are you going to say, Lew?
I just was going to say, not only what you're going to say, they give you templates about what, you know, they have all these fucking analytics that they know what will sell.
Correct.
And they'll tell artists even about their flow and their music. No. This won't sell.
Correct.
This will sell because we've done the analytics. That's how fucking
right. It ain't about the music.
Correct.
Yeah,
and
it's all
folks
about
that are making the decisions, and those folks that are making the decisions don't even have a connection to hip hop. Right. You know, there is no connection. It's just what they bring in terms of monetarily. You know, you can be whatever race, but as long as you have a connection to what hip hop represents, you can rock out and do whatever you're going to do. But a lot of times the folks that are making these decisions, they have no connection to hip hop. So essentially hip hop has lost its soul. And I don't see any way back from it unless someone just get themselves in there and becomes way too big that he can just say whatever the hell he wants to say and sort of break the mold. I think that's the only way out. At this point, you just need, like, you know, brave individuals who just want to go against the status quo. So, you know, just for the young people out there, just be mindful of the folks who you see on mainstream who's really presented out there. Should they be the folks who you're listening to and giving all your attention to right now? I think we're fortunate that the folks who made it to mainstream honestly had a message, and they had, they really had a real message, not necessarily all positive, but they had a message in terms of projecting what they saw around them. You know, so it really hit within your heart space in terms of what's being said. Whereas up now is what we're saying, there's really, no heart. There's really no connection, between what's being said and what's being projected on the mainstream with making you a better person in any capacity, in any aspects, but you guys, provide that connection between education and hip hop. So I guess with that said, what are some of the things in terms of bridging that gap that we can just, start doing in terms of hoping to promote, hip hop, or how can we sort of incorporate hip hop into education to sort of help our young people moving forward?
I use it all the time. I use rhymes to make them, to have them repeat. I let them use rhythms in order to accomplish certain things. The other thing is that I felt like I was real disgruntled with how hip hop is gone, and I don't like all the different things and ways it's gone. The lyricism is down and all that, but at the same time, I'm built with my group, the Right Track program, and we are all about education through using the techniques of hip hop, right? So what we talk about often is that this disappointment that we're feeling is partially due to our own doing. We did not spend the time teaching the young shorties the proper way to do the art form. And then by the time the art form, because it was still developing, you know what I mean? Right. Like when that golden era came was when the first few years of hip hop, you know what I'm saying? Hip hop wasn't even 10 years old at that time, 20 years old. So it's like, we're at a different point now. Things are different. Okay. The way they're being raised is different. The world is different. So we have to have somewhat of a tolerant view of what they're doing. I try to bridge connections with them, like to find the things that they like, see what it is about what they like that I can also relate to, and then try to bring them over and school them a little bit. Because one thing I know about kids is if you tell them that's trash, that's garbage, which I might feel like at the time, they're gonna pull away. So my daughter taught me this. We would take these trips, on the trips, we would each play a song. Her mother would pick a song, I'll pick a song, she'll pick a song. And you had to shut up and listen to the song. That was the rule, you know what I'm saying? And through that, I started to catch a song or two that she liked that I would have never heard, you know what I mean? And by doing that, she was open to some of my stuff. So it almost has to be like, we got to bridge that gap, because if we want to see good hip hop, we want to see the soul return, you know what I mean? Then we have to be those kind of like people to support it. Plus, the people don't support it no more. Even some of us, like people like us who really love the art form, don't buy records or don't go in and support their artists. You know what I'm saying? So the artist is out there making no money, or, you know what I'm saying, or not getting seen, and they're saying, oh, well, we ain't got no good hip hop. Well, this dude's been making it, but nobody buys his stuff anymore because they ain't playing on the radio.
Right.
So.
Right.
So Charles, you've been posing a lot of questions, which you're very good at, by the way. You're a great facilitator of learning.
Yes, sir.
I have a question because I don't have a young son. He's a 36-year-old B-boy. I still have some influence, but not much. But Charlie's, and if anyone ever gets to know Charlie, you'll know what a great father Charles is, and his mother. Like, they're raising a strong, young, sensitive Black man.
I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you.
Crazy intelligent, and has pretty good skills on ball.
Yeah, he's a baller.
On top.
He's a baller.
He can ball. He needs a better coach like me, but Charles can stand in for that. But Charles, why don't you talk a little bit about what it's like for you? Because you have your son coming up. He's listening. We're not like, you're not like some fascist where you're saying, well, you can listen to this, whatever. But how do you and Prue struggle with this real contradiction of what's happening with music and culture and the commodification of everything around, without this other pole of a movement that Charlie could look at and say, yeah, this is what I could stand for. This is the way I could be. And I know you all give him that image, but how do you talk with Charlie about this?
That's a great question, by the way. A couple of years ago, because now he's 9 going on 10. Let's say 6 or 7. I couldn't even play the radio. With him and I in the car, I couldn't even play the music which was portrayed on the radio, because just the imagery and him just hearing something on the radio and then just wanting to say it out loud, was just like, oh man, wait a minute, we're not ready to have this conversation yet. So hold on, I couldn't even like listen to hip hop, honestly, and it hurt me that I can't have my son listening to this. Now that I have knowledge of something, it's gonna just wreck, his whole conscience. You know what I mean? So to answer your question, I shielded him from that imagery. I shielded him from that messaging. But to your point, recently I said, you know what? He is, becoming, and he will become a Black man in America. I can't shield him, but so much longer. So to your point, Lew, I've been opening him up to not even just music, just more movies, which is going to sort of, provide more impetus for questioning. I'm going to play Malcolm X, in a couple of days. I just wanted to just, see that and just gain that knowledge. Malcolm X movie, Spike Lee. I'm starting to just, let him listen to a little Nas, let him listen to a couple of songs now, because I need that understanding. No, not little Nas X. No. Nasir Jones. Oh no, if that's whatever floats your boat. But no, Nasir Jones. Yeah. So I'm going. I've been incorporating more of that. That sort of music to him, because I need the questions now, because he's at the age where I don't want him going to anyone else but me for questions. You know what I mean? I don't want him asking someone else, with regards to, how to deal with women, or, what's weed, daddy, or anything else, So I think he's at the age now, not totally just like throwing it all at him at once, but if there's a song that I could think of just in terms of like, hopefully, eliciting some response from him. I'm open to now playing it now because I feel like, as you move from 9 to 10, that's a critical point there. That's an interesting juncture in the kid's life, So I think he's ready to hear certain things. So, to answer your question, I think I'm opening him up to a lot more information, and he's giving me a lot more questions in terms of, various things in reference to, if he may hear, a curse word, or if he may hear like a reference, or what is that? And, in the best way I can, I try to tell him. And
right. Let me just, I really do appreciate what you're saying, but I want to kind of frame it even more sharply.
Yeah.
Charlie's going into the world now. And
yep.
we, just like my son or anybody's children, we can't shield them completely from what's out there. Like, so he's going to be hearing, some of his boys at school, or, he goes over somebody's house where you don't have control of all this stuff. How are you? And you may not be at that point, but Charlie's going to get to that point where he's going to say, well, I like this sound, or this or that. How do you, because I don't have to engage with that. I'm wondering how you will engage, as you can't actually control as much of his cultural life, if you will, because the world out there is going to come in on him. Even
what? To answer the question, full immersion. Let me, and then just thinking about it, what sort of provided the impetus for me with him, playing basketball and loving the sport. We were at the gym not too long ago. He's playing with these kids, and Charlie's a nice kid, as you know, Lou. So he gets there, and these kids are like, "What the f? What the shit?" They were like going wild. And they were like the same age, maybe a little older. And Charlie's looking at them like, "Whoa, like what's going on?" He's not used to hearing kids engage like that. So but Charlie could ball though. So he's on the court and he's doing this thing. He made like 4 or 5 shots in a row. Like, whoa! They were like amazed at how good he was. But to that point, he wasn't necessarily ready for that onslaught of just in-your-face language. He wasn't ready for that. So when he heard that, I think that was a good, entry point into that sort of understanding. But to answer your question, I think the best way to, for me anyway, to give him that true understanding is through immersing him in it, through full immersion into, I don't know, the ills of society, but just like another way of living and thinking and expressing yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you and I have talked about it. I'm not going to share all the personal stuff, but what we're saying is, I think we both agree with this, and we agree that as teachers, when we work with our students, like there's ways to try to talk things out, right? But when someone steps to you and they're not backing down,
right?
You don't really have a lot of choices. So we talked about that. The reason I'm bringing this up, Sundiata, Charlie is this both really sweet and athletic, gifted kid. And you could see, if he couldn't play ball, he could be getting in some trouble with some young dudes, right? But he's still going to have to face that. And me and Charles have laughed about it. We're glad when Charlie stands up and he doesn't just, well, let's talk this out. And it's just such a hard balancing act. And I don't think that's just in the Black community, but in particular, like you said, people are playing ball and talking shit at each other. And Charlie just wants the ball. That's all he wants to do. You don't want to talk shit to people.
Right.
But that's what I'm saying. Your challenge will be, at some point he may say, Dad, I'm going to start talking shit at people. I'm sick of the way they talk to me. And now when I dog them, I'm going to get in their face and go, yeah, I am the man. Like, I don't know how. I'm asking that question. How would you navigate that with Charlie? Because that is part of the culture.
Mm-hmm. Are you asking me or Sundiata, Lou?
I'm asking. It could be either of you, but I know Charlie. I don't know Sundiata's children.
Right.
I have a daughter.
Mm-hmm.
I help raise her.
It might happen with your daughter too.
Oh, she's had all kind of stuff. My daughter's 25.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So I've been through all kind of things with her. I had to teach her early about self-love, self-pride, history, real history, separation from Afrocentricity, and and national understanding. There's lots of different chambers that I had to go through with her, and it ain't done. And what was helpful was some faggot ass cop pulled her out the car one night and treated her wrong, so she got a chance to taste it a little something. You know what I mean? And after that, she was all ears. She was listening before, but after that, she was like, "Now, what was that you was telling me about, Dad?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay." So I was thinking, though, when you said full immersion, we ought to come up with like a retreat, like a Zoom retreat for children or young.
There you go. There you go.
Bring forth a playlist.
There you go.
Talk about certain things, school them on hip hop, right?
There you go.
After this thing, when they sit through it, you've had a little bit of history, you've had a little bit of rundown of how you got to where you are. Nobody can understand where you're gonna go if you don't know where you're coming from. You know what I'm saying? And this is the one culture who refuses to look at their ancestors or their the people who laid the foundation and give them respect. Rock and roll, they do it. You get these young rock and roll kids, you talk about Zeppelin, dude, Zeppelin, what? You know, they got mad respect.
Right.
Us, you get some of these young kids and talk about Chubb Rock, they'll be like, who? Who's that? Oh, him, he's old.
Right.
Lil Wayne is old to a lot of these kids.
There you go. Yep. Right.
I was just gonna say it could be 5 weeks ago, and that's old already. Like,
you know what I'm saying? Who? Future? He's old. Like, what? Really? Damn.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
And to that point, reflecting when I was a teacher, just hearing young people, just disparage, Wu-Tang and Nas, and put, well, Drake's the greatest artist of all time, and you guys are old school, you guys don't know anything about hip hop, and it's just, whoa, Drake's the greatest artist of all time.
Really?
Right.
Again, I don't disrespect any of our young people trying to do their thing. Look, if you're making money, and and I'm not trying to big up their capitalist dreams, but I'm saying if it's helping you to stay off the street, to keep money in your pockets, if you're not destroying your community in the process, I can respect it. If it's not maybe my flavor, I can't say I'm a fan. I will say I've heard some beats by Drake that move me, and I think that he's a thinker. You know what I'm saying? I just choose to talk about those cats that I like Wu-Tang. Them dudes is the real deal. They write serious lyrics. They put style in. They have wordplay. They talk about what's going on. You know what I mean? And they expand. Like the Jizza. Jizza talks about otherworldly things and not just what's going on in the neighborhood.
36 Chambers. Yep.
That's what I mean. I mean,
right.
I want to hear just what's popping or dudes is getting shot around. I know that. I live in the community. You know what I'm saying? I teach in the community. I've been a community activist since I was 14.
Right.
Straight out of Roxbury. You know what I'm saying? I don't know, Lou, if you knew about Indie Prep. You know what Indie Prep was?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to work for Indie Prep. I worked for and then I went to Freedom House. I worked there years. I was a history.
You got right on Freedom House, right on